Hi guys, if you're just tuning in and watching this back, today I wanted to talk about how we're all doing in the world with our bipolar disorder. I had a couple of people tell me that one person said I had a heart attack because of the political climate. Another person said that it sent them right into a manic episode. So I wanted to talk about things to do to keep ourselves healthy and protected from what's going on in the current environment. And then also, until anyone gets here, I figured if you don't know about bipolar disorder, I would just answer some common questions about bipolar disorder. So first, how is bipolar disorder diagnosed? It's diagnosed by a doctor, and it is not based on blood tests. It's based purely on symptoms. And then symptom history, behavior patterns using the DSM-5. The DSM-5 is the big diary of all the psychiatric disorders. And the symptoms that are listed in there is what they determine what bipolar disorder is from. And then the next one is the difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. Bipolar 1 involves severe full-blown mania, while bipolar 2 involves less severe hypomania alternating with depression. So mania is thinking you can do anything, being on top of the world, and hypomania is also thinking you can do anything, being on top of the world, but mania takes it a step further, and then you end up having delusions and things like that. Hi, constantly changing. You're the first person here. How are you? I was just getting started until a few more people showed up, going through like some of the common questions about bipolar disorder. I don't know if you're new here, but I have bipolar disorder, and my channel is about sharing my life with bipolar disorder, how I get through the day, what it was like being diagnosed so late in life, and depression, all the symptoms of bipolar disorder. Hi, Danju, 1989. If you are new here, I have bipolar disorder. I'm talking about bipolar disorder. If anyone has any questions about bipolar disorder, or if you know somebody or any type of mental illness that you might be dealing with, any type of depression that you might be dealing with what's currently happening in the world, any personal fears that you might have, all the outside things that are affecting us, whether we have mental illness or not, are extremely overwhelming right now. So hi, Romania. I have found you. Hi, Sokol. Hello, Ben R. Brandy. Hi, Brandy. That's horrible news. I don't know how that happened. Let's see. Not Brandy. Hold on, you guys. I have to clean this up. Besides being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, what qualifications do you have to talk about bipolar disorder and mental health issues? Hi, Rewind 1989. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your question. I share my life living with bipolar disorder, and I talk about my symptoms, what's happened to me, and I talk to other people based on my own personal experience, which is like my entire life living with bipolar disorder. But I wasn't diagnosed until 8 years ago. So I've had all these psychotic episodes, delusions, mania, and I've hurt a significant amount of people in my life. So I have a lot of experience with the pain that somebody living with bipolar disorder causes all of their loved ones. And I have an understanding of how that affects a loved one, because I've also been a loved one on the other side of it. So I'm not a doctor. I don't have any qualifications like that. I don't give people medical advice. The only medical advice that I will ever give anyone is you need to talk to your psychiatrist about that. Which will be if somebody tells me that they've gained 50 pounds on their medication, then I will say you need to talk to your psychiatrist about that. There are other medications. But yeah, I'm not an expert. I'm not qualified in any way, shape, or form to give people advice or anything like that. So yes, I am bipolar. So constantly, I'm trying to date my bipolar best friend that's ghosting me, but I want to be there for her more than anything. So constantly changing, just try to figure out how. It's extremely difficult to have a relationship with someone with bipolar disorder and to know the best way to react to them. And it depends on where she's at with her mood, but probably the best thing for anyone, the number one thing for anyone who has a loved one with bipolar disorder and that person is going through some kind of episode, psychosis, delusions, or just irritability or anything like that, is to not take things personally. Because the bipolar person has no idea that it has nothing to do with you. Typically, they're in another reality. But in terms of being there for somebody with bipolar disorder, the best thing to do would be when they are in the depressive state, when they come out of things and they go in the depressive state and they're very, very down. That is when you're able to talk to someone about bipolar disorder and get them help. When they are delusional and hearing things, believing things that are not real, it's extremely difficult to get somebody to consent to treatment. What meds are you on? I'm on Lexapro and Abilify. So, yes, I'm bipolar. Okay, so I'm on 400 milligrams Lamictal, 200 in the morning and 200 at night, but I typically just take 400 at night. The reason why I should be taking 200 in the morning and 200 at night is for light sensitivity, because Lamictal can make you very sensitive to light. So there are certain times of day that I cannot go outside unless I have sunglasses, because my eyes just they won't stay open because of the light is too bright. But I take Lamictal, which is a very common medication that is just prescribed for bipolar disorder, and it is actually an anticonvulsant, like a seizure medication. But for some reason, it works as a mood stabilizer, and they prescribe it for bipolar disorder. Another big one that they prescribe for bipolar disorder is lithium. I'm not on that. I took it very, very briefly. I couldn't give you any information on that, but currently it's Lamictal, which is very commonly prescribed, and the other one that I take that is very commonly prescribed for PTSD, for sleep, and for anxiety is something called hydroxyzine, which is the same as something called Atarax, which is actually an antihistamine. So sometimes they'll prescribe things that are off-label. So like, for example, they'll prescribe that when they're testing a medication, they'll find out, hey, it works for this, but it also works for this. So things will be prescribed off-label. For example, so Lamictal, the anticonvulsant, and then the other one, the antihistamine. So those two medications we found out help bipolar purely by mistake. So that's kind of cool, right? So those are the only two that I take right now, but I've also taken Geodon. I've also taken around 20 other different medications that didn't work. It's a huge process finding the right medication. You probably know that if you're on a couple of them already. I took Lexapro once before, but it is a antidepressant. It's a SSRI. Right? Lexapro? Did you say Lexapro? You said, yeah, Lexapro is SSRI. And Abilify is an antipsychotic, which I've taken that one before too, but not any longer. How much oxycodone should I take? Oxycodone is a opioid, not something that I have any advice or information on whatsoever. I don't want to invalidate her in love and harder than... Okay, so constantly changing. If you're still there, I just want to tell you that I really empathize with you, and what you're feeling is so common. So many people feel completely helpless when they have a loved one in the middle of an episode, and they will not let them help them no matter how hard they try. It is almost impossible to get somebody who is in psychosis or delusional help, because if they're over the age of 18, they have authority over their own body, and when we're in that state, we do not understand that we're sick. So in fact, we're adamant that we're not sick. So it's really, really, really hard to, okay, it looks like there's a lot. I need an MRI. I'm sorry, you guys, if there's a lot of crap in the chat right now. I don't have a mod, but I can start deleting or blocking people if they're going to write nonsense in here, because we're trying to have conversation about things that hi Joey. Of course she crazy. So somebody named Snapshot Sniper said, and of course she crazy. So I don't know if they're referring to me and having bipolar disorder, but that's a really hurtful word, and it's rude, and it's something that stems out of pure ignorance. So I'm having trouble figuring out my job, career. It is so hard. I need to... So Joey, I totally understand Joey saying how hard it is to figure out their job and career. I've had to change careers before. A lot of people that I know with bipolar disorder really struggle. Some people have to work in a job where they're not allowed around a lot of people. Like they'll drive for, they'll do Uber Eats or something, drop off food, things like that. Jobs where they'll be like editor of a magazine, things like that. They'll do things where they don't have to interact with people. Sometimes with bipolar disorder, you have to find a career that's going to work with your mental illness, that you can fit around. And then there are certain things that you would never ever be able to do because you have bipolar disorder diagnosis, like fly a plane. You'll never be able to do that. You'll never be able to get a license for that, which sucks if that's your dream. So somebody said those meds screw you up when we were talking about medication. So when somebody who's living with bipolar disorder or bipolar 1, bipolar 2, leaving that illness untreated can potentially cost that person their life. People living with bipolar disorder die on average 10 to 12 years sooner than the average person. So our mortality rate is over a decade longer than other people. And this is often because many of us don't get treatment. And medication has been proven to work, proven to save lives. And I know many people are able to function in the world because of these medications. Many years ago, we had insane asylums, which people like to throw around that word currently. That word should die. That doesn't belong in the world. But they were mental health facilities that were very awful, and they were for people with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, because they didn't have medications back then to treat us. And now they have medications that allow us to function in the world. So we should be grateful for that, and not try to dissuade people from taking medication, because it saves lives. You can think whatever you want about the medical industry for yourself, but I don't think it's right to go around telling other people that they shouldn't be taking medication, that they're hurting themselves by taking medication, because you don't know. You haven't walked in their shoes. I lived a majority of my life unmedicated, not on medication, undiagnosed until 8 years ago. And I almost died multiple times prior to being medicated. Now that I've lived on medication, I manage my symptoms better, my life is a lot smoother, and I haven't gone completely psychotic and lost my mind and had all the psychotic symptoms that I did have. So that was responding to the person that said meds screw you up. Have you tried substitute all this with marijuana and possibly some alcohol? I'm going to revert back to the answer that I had for my other question. What's been proven to work for addressing bipolar disorder and schizophrenia are antipsychotics and medications that treat mood disorders. Prime Race, are you still there? I'm gonna, I can add you as a mod. I have my computer right here if you're willing to do that. What would win a fight? Okay, see, I have bipolar. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Tim, Chris, Nick, Whelan. Okay, so somebody offered some mod. If you're still here and you still want to do that, I'm just looking for questions right now. Nick Weldon said, don't listen to the chick. She isn't a professional. I'm not here diagnosing people, just so you know. I'm sharing my own life, so it's, I do have a lot of experience. Hello from Iowa. Hi from Iowa. And Soma, Tylenol, Xanax, Paroxetine, and weed. I've never tried Soma. Haven't heard of Tylenol 4. Xanax is a opioid, I believe. And promethazine, I haven't heard of that before. But everybody's going to have their own med combination. And some people do include cannabis in that. And that's that can be medicinal for many people, but also many people are against it. I don't have any, like I said, I'm not here to give advice, just my wife is bipolar with delusions. It got really bad this time last year. She finally got help in July. She's a completely different person because of the medication and therapy. That's what Nathan Webb said. Thank you so much, Nathan. Yes, medication saves lives. It gives us a chance to live a somewhat normal life. Okay, I'm going to, sorry you guys, I'm trying to catch up on the chat and so King Coda, if I missed your question, just put it below. I'm going to try to answer these questions. Let's see. Do you want to have kids? So so many people are asking about kids. I don't have kids. I mentioned this in the last stream that I did. Personally, for me, where I'm at in my life, I would never consider having, even years ago, looking back, I would never, knowing my diagnosis, I wouldn't consider having children, just because how difficult my life has been. However, I preface that with, I never had the strong desire to have children. Many people do. If I was born with that desire to have a child, I would not let bipolar stop me. I would either adopt, which you can also, or I would have a child. If that was in me, I wouldn't let bipolar stop me, because you take risks no matter what with whatever child. You could end up with anything regardless whether you have bipolar or not. And also it's, you know, it's a big decision. Some people, they want that, they need that, and that's huge. So hi Texas dude. Hi Lancaster, Hermit Crafter, it's so great to see you. Eclipse fellow bipolar one here, and Quietapine and Lamitadrine are awesome. So Quietapine is Seroquel, right? I think, which is also a really common one for bipolar disorder. Bipolar is the least of my worry. A lot of people, so King Coda said, a lot of people, hi Freddie, bipolar isn't affecting the child. Your condition will affect what's happening. The condition is definitely hereditary. So Chris the Sultan, we were talking about children with bipolar disorder. Yes, it's definitely hereditary. Especially if both parents are bipolar disorder, then there's a very high chance that the child will be bipolar. But like I said, there are other things that are not hereditary that you could get. I'm trying not to judge. For me personally, I would never have kids. I don't think I think when you have a disease like bipolar disorder, it's really hard not to, I don't know. We can live almost normal lives on medication, and we should be able to do anything that anyone else does. So that's my take on it. Me personally, I've had too messed up of a life. But if I had been on medication sooner, and if I had a desire to have children, I would have them. But I don't. I never have. Yeah, 50-50 shot. Add a Q&A sticker. So I don't know what this means, but I'm going to try it. Best part of the day. I don't know. Sorry, hold on, you guys. I'm trying to do something. YouTube Live has asked me to do this question answer thing, so I was gonna see. I was trying to do it. There we go. So is talking to yourself a lot a sign of bipolar? I think talking to yourself is a sign of an intelligent person, actually, because you're thinking your thoughts out. And also, you know, if you want to talk to, staying off the grid. Staying off the grid is going in timeout. Replay conversations in my head. Somebody said I replay conversations in my head a lot. So that would be, I do that too. Everybody does that, I think, for somewhat. I don't know, maybe not everybody. But with bipolar disorder, I think that for me personally, I am in my head a lot. Like just walking down the street and passing someone, it's like there's a whole dialogue going on in my head. Should I smile at this person? Should I look in their way? Should I look the other direction? Like anxiety provoking things of just walking down the street, and my brain will be going and going and going. I also replay scenarios. I think a lot of people do that, but all my brain, I'll end up in what's called like circular thinking, where I'll have an issue in my life and my thoughts will keep going around and around it. No matter what I try to do, I cannot stop thinking about it, like obsessive. Does that happen to you guys? Genetic, prenatal, environmental factors. If lithium works for you, then you definitely have one of the mutations that gets inherited from 95% of cases. I was reading Lancaster Hermit Crafter. I heard that they found out that lithium works because of something in the ground, in terms of like lithium being in the ground, something strange like that. But yeah, definitely environmental factors, I would say. But I think mostly it comes from trauma. Trauma may be hereditary, but I think that your brain can only handle so much. And I think growing up in a household where I had two parents who were falling out of love and fighting all the time made for a very unstable life and created a bunch of trauma. Somebody offered to be a mod earlier. I don't know what happened to you. Maybe you left, but we all have internal, it just depends on what you're reacting to or saying. Also, when people hear voices, that is not internal. Their ears physically hear things not there. Yes, Joey. So there's different types of hearing voices. I don't know if you guys know that. But like there's hearing actual voices. And then for me personally, it's a different kind of delusion where I hear people actually talking, but whatever they're saying, they're responding to my thoughts. Everything that they say out of their mouth was an answer to something that I had thought, which is really weird. So either I'm not hearing what they're saying correctly, or I'm somehow thinking of something that it's really, really strange. It's a really weird delusion. But yeah, usually with schizophrenia, people hear voices more. It's not as common with bipolar. It's not as significant as it is with schizophrenia. So like schizophrenia is classified as a thought disorder. So I think maybe, I don't know enough about it to speak on it, but that is true that it's more hearing voices from schizophrenia, but that aren't there. So constantly changing said, do bipolar people end up getting taken advantage of? I think getting too involved with groups during a manic episode, also being paired with being a non-neurotypical person. So absolutely, people get taken advantage of. Anybody with mental illness of any kind can get taken advantage of, but particularly with people with bipolar disorder. And I can tell you a lot of stories about that. I'll just give you one example of something that happened in my life. I was completely out of my mind. I was delusional. And a lot of people will say, well, how do you remember so much if you forget so much? But there are bits and pieces and images that I remember, even though there's a ton of stuff that's completely gone. So I remember this one particular day, I had a cell phone. My cell phone was dying. I had a really hard time holding on to cell phones, keeping my cell phone charged. I had been wandering the streets for months, not sleeping, walking for days on end, sleeping outside, or just mostly not sleeping. So I was really in full-blown mania, really in full-blown psychosis. I took out my retirement money out of my account, which was like $22,000 or something like that. All the money I had, which wasn't a lot, but I cashed it out because I was in mania, because I was in psychosis. And when you're in psychosis and mania, there's no future. There's only now. There's no thought of consequences for anything. There's only now. And it's an interesting place to be. But so I was at this hotel. I was trying to charge this battery, and there's this woman standing behind me, and she's sitting there, and she sees me charging my phone, and she can tell I'm out of my mind. She's a hustler. Like she knows what to do. So this woman starts saying, oh man, I need to get money for something or other, and da 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 da, and somehow convinces me, I go to the bank, somehow convinces me to give her $1,000. And I did. I gave her $1,000 because she said, can you, if I write you a check, can you? So of course she writes me a bogus check, and I give her $1,000. So that's the kind of thing where people get taken advantage of. Also, when we're in psychosis or mania, a lot of times something that's very common is that for whatever reason, we will hang out with unhoused, homeless individuals, people who use substances. And I think that we tend to gravitate towards these people because they're the only people that don't really tell us we're out of our mind. And also a lot of it, I think, has to do with empathy. I experience extreme empathy when I'm in psychosis, and I just want to help everyone. So I ended up in a lot of situations where I was like giving my stuff away to homeless people, but them in return, they were also stealing from me. So yeah, I got taken advantage of a lot. I got my car stolen, just a lot of crazy stuff. Yes, we lack critical evaluation. We're talking about bipolar disorder. So I'm gonna go down to the bottom. Let me know if I missed anything. I used to live in abandoned houses and smoke crack with the homeless. Guess what changed that? So low squares is in here. High highs and low lows, it seems cyclical. The highs aren't always grandiose. It can be irritability, anger, and agitation as well. So what changed that? Loose squares. Did you have a diagnosis that you started taking medication for? Did you go to rehab? What is your advice to others? But yeah, I think Jonathan was talking about when I stopped participating in the mental health industry, it kind of seems like all my symptoms and diagnoses cease to exist. Okay, so Loose Squares is talking about their own personal experience, and they could have been misdiagnosed and put on medication that wasn't working for them. And maybe they had a situation in their life where something happened traumatic and they were misdiagnosed and put on medication that doesn't work for them. Their situation should not be representative of somebody who's been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, who's taking medication, who is able to now feel better and live healthy in the world. So if you only knew what you know, then you would know. Hi, Steve. I don't know what you're talking about. So we're back to Lou Squares. Loose Squares. So clearly this is going to be an interesting conversation and topic. So what this person is saying is that they stopped taking, they had, actually, Loose Squares, can you, so you've been diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia. Dozens of doctors co-signed that diagnosis. So Loose Squares, what symptoms did you have that made them give you that diagnosis? And I'm just curious because when somebody has schizophrenia, they're hearing voices all the time. It doesn't just go away. And being diagnosed with that, if that's not something you're experiencing and you miraculously one day stopped hearing voices, that's awesome for you, but that's not reality for everyone, except for you, perhaps. And then, so in terms of victim mentality, I want to make this go away. Okay. Hi, Ethan X. Yes. Lancaster Hermit Crab said, Loose Squares, whatever works for you. But if you have been diagnosed, you probably should get. Have you tried SSR antidepressant? Did you react well? So Joey asked me if I took an SSRI and if I reacted well. SSRIs are serotonin inhibitors. So they do something with the serotonin in your brain, and they work really well for depression. But for somebody with bipolar disorder, you cannot be, if you have bipolar 1, I don't know about bipolar 2, I don't want to speak on that because I don't know. But with bipolar 1, if you are prescribed an SSRI antidepressant and you're not also prescribed a antipsychotic at the same time in conjunction with that, like somebody said in the chat, they're on Lexapro and Abilify. Abilify is an antipsychotic, Lexapro is an SSRI. If you're not in conjunction taking both of those at the same time, you will have a manic episode, because the SSRI, it messes with the the serotonin, the dopamine, all that stuff in your brain. And with bipolar 1, people are very susceptible to mania. So when you start feeling good and things start firing off, then you go into mania. So I have taken Lexapro before, and it caused exactly that. I was misdiagnosed with depression. I was put on Lexapro. I had a psychotic episode that lasted 8 months, lost my home, completely uprooted my life. So it's unfortunate that medications can do that when they're the wrong ones prescribed, because even though all that happened, I still have to take medication, and I'm on medication now, and I'm happy and healthy. But yeah, getting the wrong medication can be a disaster. So Lou Square's talking about tardive dyskinesia. And yes, I talked about that in the last stream. And that is, and I talked about how, so I'm going to address this really quick just because. What would be the best way one of your friends to be back in contact with you and become your friend again? Would you still love to receive? Constantly changing. I think that would depend on the actual person. But in terms of like getting someone to talk to you again, forgiveness is something that we have to be accountable if we hurt people, and then we also have to be you know, honest, and they have to be accepting, and sometimes that can be hard. So Loose Squares brought up tardive dyskinesia, and I want to bring this up as well because there's been a lot of talk about medication, and there are a lot of people nowadays that deny science and deny that medication works, and they think it's some huge conspiracy. The pharmaceutical industry is a business just like every other business. And sometimes they will make a drug that works for something that causes a side effect. And then they'll make a medication to address that side effect rather than make a new medication that addresses that side effect in combination with the original medication. So then they can sell you two medications. So they can sell you the Abilify, and then they can sell you the medication for tardive dyskinesia at the same time. Part of that is business, and part of that is every medication now needs to be made with that. Like, they're all different. They all kind of, it's like a puzzle putting the different pieces of the medication together. So tardive dyskinesia is a sucky side effect, but it is treatable. There is something that cancels that side effect out. But you know, you might have two different medications also that both need whatever is causing that. So that's why people get upset with the medical industry, and that's why a lot of people have gone into like this conspiracy theory thinking and all this other stuff. Prozac and Seroquel and PRN. So PRN is like as needed medication. Lexapro sucked for me, yes. Serotonin rebuke. They prolong the activity of serotonin in the synapse. I've been on SSR2, very depression word for years. I've never heard of it, SNRI. That's interesting. Okay, so Loose Square said accountability and working through your trauma is what helps, not victim mindset and medications. So again, medications work, and I think it's really, I think for me it hurts, and for me it's kind of triggering when somebody says victim mindset instead of victim mindset and taking medication. You need accountability and therapy and deal with your trauma. Well, I've been in years of therapy. I go to therapy. I do deal with my trauma on a daily basis. And I think that it's very easy from where some people sit, be that a place of delusion or not, to judge somebody else and say that they have a victim mindset when they have a medical diagnosis. It's hurtful and it's inaccurate. Well, let's talk about energy levels. Do you have a favorite person, and do your favorite person change? Director, I don't have a favorite person, but that is a specific symptom, with a type of symptom with borderline personality disorder. I'm not familiar with that relating to bipolar disorder. But energy levels are constantly changing with bipolar disorder. Yes, Joey answered for me. You guys in the U.S. have it very broad in terms of... Don't you guys, Lancaster, Herman, don't you guys have universal health care? Loose Squares, I'm not calling you delusional. I'm saying that I'm saying that whether you are somebody who is in the middle of a psychosis and not believing that you need to take medication, or you're somebody who just doesn't believe in medication, whatever the case is, medication is necessary for bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Whether you believe it or not, history has proven that when people take medication for those illnesses, they do much better in life than when they don't. You can shout at me counseling all day long and therapy and dealing with your trauma, but once somebody is in psychosis and experiencing psychotic symptoms, there is nothing you can do to talk them out of that. You can't say, hey, you're not really hallucinating. You can't tell somebody that's seeing something that you're not seeing that that's not real, because they believe that that's real. So saying that, oh, well, you're just being a victim and you're just being reliant on medication to somebody that's not even in reality is not going to work. So Joey said everyone has a different experience, so you cannot universally say something is outright or good or bad. I don't know. You're right. Everyone does have a different experience, but I can say, like, historically, it's been proven that medications work for bipolar disorder. That doesn't mean that people aren't going to have bad experiences. That doesn't mean there aren't going to be some people who are non-responsive to medication, because that does happen. But I'm just saying, like, in terms of general, in general, people with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia need medication to live well. Exercise, eating well, and a decent sleep schedule goes a very long way. All I'm saying, maybe those mental health professionals are hindering your growth. So loose squares, no, actually they're not, because all of those lifestyle changes are things that I do participate in. And they still, believe it or not, they still don't prevent psychosis from happening if I were to have a severe traumatic event. For example, I can keep to my sleep schedule all day long, but in 2022, when my dog was brutally run over by a car in front of my face, and I couldn't sleep for 3 days, and I started experiencing symptoms of psychosis, there was no way you were going to talk me out of that. There was no way you were going to be able to put me through counseling out of that, nor would you be able to anyone else. That happened because I wasn't on medication and because it was a severe traumatic event and my brain didn't know how to deal with it. So I started getting to a point where I got very hypomanic, where I started rearranging all the stuff around my house. I had to go to the hospital, commit myself in the hospital and say, hey, you know, when I've had these symptoms before, I've done things like drive 100 miles per hour on the freeway and put other people in danger, not only myself. I have done things like bankrupt myself when I've been, so I had to go to the hospital and I had to say these things and have myself committed. So, and this was for safety. So when I'm dealing with that and somebody's coming at me with, you're having victim mentality, all you need to do is sleep better, you need to exercise. These are all things that I do. And I also get a lot of times people saying, oh, you just need to pray and your mental illness will go away. Also not true. So there's a lot of misconceptions. So loose squares, you're totally entitled to your opinion and whatever works for you, for sure. Definitely. But from where I sit and living my life, my entire life not on medication and experiencing psychosis and having my life completely uprooted and dismantled because of psychosis, it hurts to hear somebody say that to you. So Lancaster Hermit Crab is talking about bipolar disorder on an MRI, and so it is actually visible in the brain. If you look at the brain of somebody with bipolar disorder, you will see less gray matter. So, and the longer that we spend in depression or mania, the gray matter in our brain starts to disappear, and that's important. We need that gray matter in there. So, over time, bipolar disorder can cause brain damage, which I'm sure I have some. So I think loose squares, you trying to get us to see things differently is a valiant, and I think that's a good thing for you to try, a good feeling for you to want to try and help everyone, you know, with and get people to open their eyes to what's worked for you. But these are things that we're doing already. Like, I'm already, and I appreciate your input for sure. I'm already sleeping, and like I said, like, there's nothing that's going to stop the mania or psychosis from coming, like the medication, nothing. It's the keeping a good sleep schedule, eating right, exercising, all going to therapy, all of those things are going to help you with your day-to-day issues with bipolar disorder and keep your symptoms at bay, but they're not going to fix the major life-changing symptoms. Oh, I didn't know that. So Lancaster Hermit Crab said there's more gray matter in other areas of the brain. I did not know that. So I need to look up that. Yeah, like I said, I'm always going to stand behind medication. I'm always going to, sorry, I was just thinking. We did this thing before we got on. Before I did the live, I did this thing called, well, YouTube was having this meeting, right, about live streaming. And so they made groups. We were supposed to go into break rooms and talk to each other. And so everybody's like saying what their channel is about. And I had to say my channel was about bipolar disorder. And when I said that, I felt embarrassed and ashamed. And I still feel that way, even though all the years that I've been doing this YouTube channel, all the people that I've talked to with bipolar disorder, the more every single time I bring it up and I say, this is who I am, I still feel bad about it. And I just hate that. And I wish I could change it, but I can't. There's nothing I can do to change it. Hi, Matthew. Thank you for your input. I totally agree with you. Yes, we do have very peculiar brains. Oh, I sent myself a short, actually. Hi, Ju Gonzalez. If you're new here, we're talking about bipolar disorder and living with bipolar disorder. So Lancaster Hermit Crab said, our capacity for love and compassion is unmatched. This is true because people with bipolar disorder experience emotions at a much stronger level than most. Like, we feel things more. So like, we feel sadness more on a higher level than the average person, but we also feel happiness on sometimes that we can feel that more joyful. Like, sometimes I get so happy, like I'm gonna cry over just like random, like a good song that I really love or something. And, or, you know, like I'll see something on TV that's like a joyous moment and it will like make me cry out of happiness. So there's a part of bipolar where, you know, that is ingrained in like how I feel about the world. And I think that it does give us a greater capacity to love because we're more compassionate, we're more understanding, and sorry, I'm distracted by that question. Hi, William. If you guys are just scrolling, we're talking about bipolar disorder, and we were talking We've been talking about medication, what bipolar disorder is like. We've been talking a lot about medication. But I wanted to talk about common delusions, because a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people don't understand that bipolar disorder can affect the brain in ways that are not fixable by just being talked out of. These are things that are hardcore, concrete beliefs. Yeah, Matthew, but why do I have to feel... Okay, so Jeremy77UU wants to talk about Epstein Island for some reason. We're not really talking about that, but since you brought it up and put it in the chat there, I would like to say something regarding that. This whole Epstein thing is insane, and the fact that all of these files have come out and nothing is happening. They're just everyday news. They're out now, and then nothing will happen. No one will be prosecuted. Nobody. It's not even news, because there's so much crap that Trump has done and so much stuff that's happened in the United States. It's not even news. And these poor women have been completely abused and everything else. And you know what else is really weird about that? Is the guy who owns the company Victoria's Secret, he was heavily involved with Jeffrey Epstein and that island. And he owned a company called The Limited, and under that company was Victoria's Secret, the chain store. So when I worked at Victoria's Secret, because I worked for the chain store, I didn't go to the island, and I wasn't a supermodel or anything like that, obviously, but I worked for the company selling stuff. So here I am working for these perverts, and just disgusting. Like, the whole company, Victoria's Secret in general, is just gross for what they've done to women. I think I have a medical brain condition. I think I'm mentally broke. I think it's totally normal to feel that way. I think a lot of us feel broken, but I think it's good to remember everyone's broken. So let me just bring this up really quick for anybody that's watching this back, or anyone that's there or scrolling. Because a lot of people don't know, with bipolar disorder, we can experience delusions and believe things that aren't true. So some of these things that somebody with bipolar disorder can experience when they're in mania is they can believe that they have special powers or talents. Like me believing that I'm some sort of special person, and that I'm actually famous and on a reality show in the middle of Truman Syndrome, or like I can magically turn on lights with my mind, like believing things like that. Mind reading. Oh, I've definitely thought I could speak to animals before, thought I had superhuman strength before, a lot of things like that. So fame or identity, believing in one deity, historical figure, or celebrity. I've met people who think that they're God before. During my very first episode, I thought it was like the second coming of God, like Jesus's sister. This was a delusion that I had that I believed was true. Like, I walked around with this in this world, in this reality. And then wealth and influence, false conviction of immense wealth. Absolutely. Okay, so I believed in my mania every single time that I had millions and millions of dollars, that I was insanely rich. I just didn't have any access to it. It was in the bank. It had my name on it somewhere. It was there. I just didn't have access to it. But I believed that I had all this money when I didn't. Secret connections to royalty or world leaders. There was one point where I thought my dad was actually Michael Jackson and my mom was Madonna. I believed this, like hardcore believed this. And you look back and you're like, how could one believe that? And then I was thinking about something the other day. I was thinking about, because there's a show called It's Florida Man, and there was a woman on there who had bipolar disorder, and she was telling a story about her bipolar episode, and to her it was very funny, and she was laughing about it. And I was thinking to myself, I don't think I could ever laugh at any of the stuff that I did when I was in psychosis. It's all just too painful. It's all just too traumatic. There's no way I could relay anything back and be like, oh, that was funny that I thought that, because it was, and it was terrifying. So Matthew said it's all political stuff. I mean, they just don't care about the women. Thank you, Lancaster Hermit Crafter. Okay, Jerry. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, it's sad. It's sad that sometimes I feel embarrassed. I feel the same way about psychosis. It's been 10 years and I still can't laugh about it. Definitely. I just don't, like, I try to think of, so sometimes my husband will bring something up that happened, like he'll be like, oh yeah, remember when you were hypomanic and you did this, and my stomach will drop every single time and I'll immediately feel like depressed and embarrassed and ashamed, and like, God, it's like that, why did I do that type thing, but it was completely out of my control. So it's a really horrible feeling. And it's, I don't know, maybe someday it will go away, but 10 years is a long time. It's been my whole life. I haven't been able to laugh at any of it. Let me jog my mind and see. There's literally nothing I could laugh at. Okay, so impact on life. I'm going to go back to bipolar disorder issues with delusions. So impact on life. Risky behavior. One of the things that we do when we're in psychosis is risky behaviors. We can be sexually active with multiple partners, unprotected, things like that. We can drive at extremely high speeds on the freeway. We can drive through stop signs. We don't believe there's no consequences for anything we do in our brains. So we can gamble away all of our money, just completely risky behavior, surround ourselves with dangerous people, all kinds of horrible things. Hi, Tony. How many times have you been through psychosis? So distorted reality, a person might feel they are designed and destined for greatness, acting completely, such as believing they can solve world poverty instantly. That's a good one. Hi, Philly from San Francisco. I'm in Long Beach, so you aren't that far away. Yay, California. I saw this short where people were like in other countries, and rather than say they were American, they're like, no, I'm Californian. No, I'm not American, Californian, because what it means to be an American right now is confusing. So yeah, risky behavior, distorted reality, thinking you can solve the world's problems. What did I think? One time I thought that I could like cure homelessness by doing a documentary on homeless people. And there was one night, this was in my second psychotic episode, I got it in my head that I needed to give all the people in Tent City, in San Diego, the homeless population area, I got it in my head that I needed to deliver them all socks. So I bought all these socks and I went downtown and I started passing out socks with someone else to homeless people. Something that was completely out of character for me, even though it isn't quite, like, I've always cared about other people. I've always wanted to help other people, but to actually get up and do something like that is something that wasn't something that I would normally do. It would be nice if people did that when they're not in mania, but hi, Richard. Antidepressant thing. Anyways, so yeah, okay, so manic episode. Thoughts typically occur during high energy phase and can last weeks or months if not treated. If anybody in the chat has had a psychotic episode and never got medical treatment for it, it just went on and you came out of it on your own, let me know, and let me know how long that took. Because that did happen to me once. My second psychotic episode lasted around 8 months and I came out of it on my own. Yes, California. I didn't need, there was no medical intervention. I just slowly came back to reality and woke up one morning and was like, what did I do to my life? There were some serious consequences that were happening at the time, like my home was going to be foreclosed on. So maybe that helped snap me out of it. But yeah, has anybody ever come out of it on your own without medication? Because I get a question from a lot of people coming to my channel who have a loved one who they cannot help. And their first question is, how long is this going to last? When are they going to come back to normal because they can't get their loved one medicated? So Jeremy's in there dancing. Lancaster Hermit, are you still there? So we're not dancing here, Jeremy, but I like your thought process. Oh, cool. So let me know if you have any current challenges that you're going through. I know you're not in the US, you're in the UK, right? Hi HMB. I picture like where you live, like covered with like green hills and like bike paths. That's what I picture. Like endless like hills of like beautiful nature. So hi guys, if you're scrolling through, my name is Steph. I have bipolar disorder. I've lived with it my whole life, and we're just hanging out, chatting, talking about bipolar disorder, and getting random questions here and there, but which I may or may not answer. If colors had smell, which would, so I love gay boners. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Hello, content creator. What's your message to new viewers? A lot of us are new here and curious about your live streams. Hi, Link 1111. My name is Steph. I have bipolar disorder. I do a personal vlog channel where I talk about living with bipolar disorder to try to help people better understand it and take away kind of the stigma, and also give support to people like myself who might just need somebody to relate to. So that's what my channel is all about. If you're struggling with any kind of mental health issue, you might benefit from watching my channel, just because I think we all struggle. So Matthew, there's all kinds, if you were concerned about any kind of behaviors or feelings that you might be able to have, if you have any, I'm going to answer you in a second, Michael Platt, because I love that question. That's very peaceful. I lost my train of thought because I was answering one person. Okay. Have you been able to learn anything or derive meaning from your manic episodes? Mine have offered me a lot of spirituality insight. Okay, so the things that I have learned from my psychotic episodes is that the world is confusing, and that life in general is confusing, and that we have no idea what it is, and that our perception of things is very, very powerful, and that manifestation is real, and that in terms of spirituality, I am no longer a religious person or somebody who believes in things like heaven and hell, or basically any kind of religion I don't really believe in. If I did believe in anything, it'd be closest to Buddhism now, whereas before I was religious. But, you know, after having delusions and believing that I was God and believing that I heard the voice of God, after experiencing those things and knowing that I experienced those things because they were ingrained in me from the time I was a child and that they weren't real, really confirms my belief that I don't have evidence of an all-powerful being. But I do have evidence of energy and positivity and saying things and believing things are going to go really great. I do have evidence of that actually happening in my life, where I've meditated on things and things have gotten significantly better, or a problem has been solved, or it's completely changed my life. And a lot of people feel that way about prayer, which I think prayer is very similar to meditation. The only difference is that with meditation, there's no middleman. So like when you're I believe, like when you're praying to God, like you really believe that God is going to answer your prayers. Like you believe in your soul that all you have to do is pray and God's going to answer your prayers. I think that belief that your prayers are going to be answered is what makes your prayers be answered. I just think for me, meditating and believing that that can happen on my own with the power inside me and my meditation, it can happen the same way. So oh yeah, so Matthew was saying they feel like he might have symptoms. There's a test online on Google. You can just type in test for bipolar, test for schizophrenia, and then you can go to one and it will give you an answer after you take the test. There's free tests, and then you'll just know if it gives you like a positive, or it will say, you know, you need to go get a diagnosis. It's not, you can't use it to diagnose you, but you can use it to say, hey, maybe there's more that I need to look at. Maybe I need to see a doctor and get a diagnosis. Yes. Link 1111 said, is this therapy sort of group you're inspiring for deep understanding of the cause? Yes. So I'm all about supporting each other and giving each other tips and helping us get through the day, and just hanging out and trying to get rid of the, I don't want to say stigma, but I guess that's what it is, a bipolar disorder. Trying to help people just better understand that we're still normal people. Hi, Parvisabishari. For those who do not understand, can you explain it from both ends? Link, do you mean bipolar disorder for those that don't understand? I was just going through all of the different symptoms of bipolar disorder, psychosis, which is something you can experience with bipolar, but bipolar is extreme highs and extreme lows. So feeling so hopeless you don't want to be alive and sleeping for 18 hours a day, to feeling on top of the world, and then to feeling on top of the world and believing things that are not real. Hopefully that answers it for the most part. Mania taught me that there are things in my soul that are indestructible, like my capability to love and to find solutions even to the naughtiest problems. Thirst for knowledge too. Yes. Lancaster Hermit Crab. Yes. The stuff that I experience in mania just makes me so confused about the world, though, because there are so many weird things that happened. Like, they're coincidence things, but they're so coincidental that it's weird. Like when I was in psychosis in my last very dangerous episode, like almost 10 years ago, well, 10 years ago, I lived in the South Bay, about 20 miles from here, from where I live now. But there's a train that goes from the South Bay all the way to downtown LA and to Long Beach. And when I was out of my mind in psychosis, wandering the streets, you know, hanging out with homeless people and just never sleeping, just wandering, a lot of the time that I spent in Long Beach. And I had never spent any time in Long Beach before. And it's so weird because we ended up moving to Long Beach. And after my episode was over, we ended up moving to Long Beach, and we're walking my dog one day, and we walk around the corner and walk in front of a house, and I see this woman that owned a property that when I was in psychosis, she was the landlord of the property. And now I'm living like a block away from her other property. She only owns 2 properties. It's just so, there are all these connections. And it would be like, for example, like the second psychotic episode, I spent all this time in LA, even though I lived in San Diego. I drove to LA, to Hermosa Beach, to all these different places all over LA. And then a few years later, after that episode ended, I ended up moving to LA, to those specific neighborhoods that I had visited prior. And it's just really strange. It's like, to me, like, I think if I could put like if I could say, like, if I had a theory about life, right, based on my mania, it would be really strange. It would be that, like, we're all living in like this virtual reality and we're all playing a game, and that when our life starts to take a turn to the left, we go manic in terms of resetting our life on the right path. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's kind of what I kind of a theory that I have. Okay, so Mark said sum up bipolar for me. It's when you go off and happy the next minute. So no, not really. It would be, so it's not like you wake up, there is something called rapid cycling where people, it's very rare, but it's a type of bipolar where people are constantly having an episode. But bipolar disorder is not being happy one minute and then angry the next. It's going from extreme highs to extreme lows. So it's like having a depressive episode where you get really, really down and it lasts for a long period of time. Like, say it lasts a week. There are certain parameters on how long it has to last in order for it to be bipolar, but so depressed that you cannot get out of bed. You can't physically talk to anyone. You may not even shower or, change your clothes or anything because you're that depressed. And then, then you can go wake up one morning and then be on top of the world immediately following that. So it's not like a quick thing. It's like long periods of time, a long period of time of depression, and then followed by a period of complete elation and excitement. And with bipolar disorder, it's cyclical. So, for example, I had my first psychotic episode when I was 16, and then I got put on medication and I got better, but I didn't continue to take medication because I had a bad reaction, and it was a different day and age back then. So I didn't continue to take medication, and I had minor symptoms for a decade. I had minor symptoms and symptoms of depression, and symptoms of irritability and anger and mood swings here and there, but nothing of a severe manic episode or psychosis until 10 years later. So in between that 10 years, I was pretty euthymic. I wasn't experiencing symptoms of bipolar. I still had irritability, I still had depression, but I didn't have any mania or beliefs that weren't real. So it can be confusing for people because people will say, oh, I stopped taking my medication and I'm not having any symptoms. And they might be symptom free for 6 months, but then they're going to have an episode. So it's important to keep up with your medication. A lot of people can stop taking it because they feel better. Hi, Sophie. Some smart people think we are in a test simulation. Yeah. No, married. I have been diagnosed, but lately have been experiencing episodes that bring concern. I've never been diagnosed. So, Tim, what kind of access to healthcare do you have? Can you go to your primary and ask to be referred to a psychiatrist? Definitely take the tests online. One of the telltale signs of bipolar disorder is not only the depression and being able to sleep for such a long extended period of time and not wanting to do anything that you really love, is the excited elation. And what you'll notice is you won't be able to sleep. Like, And if you are sleeping, you're sleeping a couple hours a night, and you'll have this less of a desire for sleep. Your thoughts will get faster and faster. You'll start talking faster. You'll make all these big plans that you'll never follow through on, things like that. I hate being unfairly judged. That wasn't me in my psychosis, and I was just diagnosed sorting through meds and hospitalized. She told me she couldn't be my friend after I told her I got back with my boyfriend. Okay, Sophie, absolutely, I totally relate. It's really hard when you have a psychotic episode and you have friends around you that you care about very much, and you don't know you're mentally ill. They don't know you have a diagnosis because you don't have one yet. And then you have this episode that you have no control over, and you're mean to your friend, and then they don't want to talk to you anymore because they don't understand you're sick. So you lose friends, and then trying to get that friendship back once you're better, you kind of have to go with your tail between your legs and be so embarrassed and ashamed and be like, I'm so sorry I hurt your feelings. I have bipolar disorder, which is really hard to do, and a lot of people don't understand that. So losing friends is really, really common. It's something that I've had to learn how to deal with over the years. I think it's important to say that most of the people that you meet in your life that you're friends with, you're going to lose anyway. Your friends that are going to stick around are going to stick around regardless. And the people that you're going to lose because of bipolar disorder, you would have lost them anyway. They weren't a good friend to begin with. And there are people that just have to go away for their own mental health problems. Even though they might love you as a friend, they might have their own issues they have to deal with. So it's important not to judge someone for having to walk away too. Sorry, Brian, blah, blah, blah. Somebody has a really long screen name. Do you feel sensitive about memory issues that have to do with brain damage? What kinds of things would you like to hear if it's necessary to jog your memory? So constantly changing. I do feel sensitive about memory problems, like, because memory issues is something that I experience with bipolar disorder, and it could be partially my medication, but I think the majority of it is my ADHD. Because I'm often elsewhere when I'm doing something, so sometimes I don't remember a lot of things. So it is something that I get anxiety about, and that causes problems in my relationship sometimes. No, I wouldn't say causes arguments between my husband and I, because he'll be like, I told you that, you don't remember, I told you that, and I won't remember. But yeah, some memory issues is totally normal. Are you crazy? The Rambler 972, are you crazy? I don't blame you if you hate me. My people are the problem. The Dark Magician. I'm not sure what you were talking about. I might have missed something. So yeah, so we were talking about bipolar disorder. If you're scrolling through or just chatting about bipolar disorder, what it's like living through it. And hi, Sulfur. I don't know what's going on here, but if you're not here to talk about bipolar disorder or something related to it, or your mental health, and you're just here to put random stuff in the chat, I'm gonna take you out if you keep going. So either stop or get deleted. Sulfur. Sulfur, what are your multiple diagnoses? We were talking about bipolar disorder if you're just passing through, and other mental illnesses if you have one. I have bipolar disorder. That's what I share my life about. Yeah, I'm gonna delete them. So the problem is you get one person, and then there are other people who come in, and I have to be careful who I delete, because GAD, panic attacks, bipolar 2, and ADHD. I feel like ADHD is commonly prescribed with bipolar disorder, because I have that too. So with the bipolar 2 and clinical depression, how do you have like a diagnosis for both? Does it mean that you're depressed all the time, but you also have bipolar disorder? Um, but yeah, ADHD is a real pain in the ass. A lot of people don't even believe that's like a real illness. Like I told my brother I was diagnosed with ADHD, and he responded with not a real thing. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? This has like been a major issue in my life. Like I really struggled in school because of it. Um, I bet even the best engineers couldn't invent a contraception. Oh, Jesus. Okay, let's take this out. Okay. So, okay, I don't know if Adderall, I know Adderall is prescribed for some people with ADHD, I think. I can't take it because people with bipolar disorder cannot take any kind of stimulant with, they'll prescribe stimulant for people with ADHD. I guess I don't know how it works, but they do. And if you have bipolar, you can't have that. So I would never be prescribed Adderall because of my bipolar. So I've tried multiple drugs. I could say antidepressants, benzo, and non-stimulant ADHD medication. I don't do well. I don't take benzos or anything like that. Modafinil mod. We can have modafinil lab. It's safer. Oh, Lancaster, can you type that again? I don't know if you accidentally. If you want to keep doing this, there are auto-filtering options to stop people from live commenting in problematic ways. I'll work on that. There are words that I can filter out. I know that. And usually I have a mod, but I've just been doing random lives lately. I think most people have body dysmorphia. It's no fun. I empathize with you. Does marijuana help people with bipolar, or any studies suggest it can be helpful? Skipler one, I don't know. That's something you would have to look on Google Scholar for peer-reviewed studies. Most of the peer-reviewed studies that they've done, as far as I know, on marijuana, are negative effects on bipolar disorder. Most of the stuff that I've seen. But go to Google Scholar and look for peer-reviewed studies on the benefits of using cannabis with bipolar disorder, and you might find something. I don't know that I've ever actually done that. So, hi, Frank Vasquez. I respect people of faith, but at some extremes, they seem like they lose touch with reality. Okay, only because I have so many shorts on my channel. Oh, you can see them in the background. Only because I have so many animal shorts, I will show you guys Rocco. Come here, baby. This is Rocco. He's 6 pounds. He has a sister that looks nothing like him. and he is my baby. Yeah, he's my baby. He's a real pain in the ass. He barks like crazy. And do you know what he does that's so annoying? So I had to adopt his sister as well, because when I brought him home, he was a jerk to my husband. He refused to like my husband, still hates my husband. He just has had a lot of trauma. And so he's one of those dogs that picks one person. So he hates everyone but me and his sister. So I had to adopt his sister. So now I have two dogs, which I didn't plan on doing. And his sister would be so easy to potty train. If I go outside and I go take her for, if I carry her downstairs, she'll be able to go outside. Him won't go, refuses. I'll walk him around the entire block and he'll come home and go right on the potty pad. And it is so infuriating. I don't know what to do with him, but what's the worst thing about bipolar disorder? That's the question that we're answering if you're scrolling through right now. What is the worst thing about living with bipolar disorder? I get this question a lot on most live streams. People ask this. The worst part of being bipolar is hurting people, is the people that you hurt. In order to be diagnosed, you have to have one episode, and those episodes are usually pretty dramatic and damaging and hurtful, and it's hard to get over those things. It's hard to move past relationships that have been damaged, or lost friendships, or lost family members, all that. That's the worst part about bipolar disorder. And second behind that would probably be just loving yourself is really hard to do when you have a mental illness and you live in today's day and age. A lot of people challenge you, blame you for your own illness. There's a lot of misinformation out there. For me, it's learning to love myself with bipolar disorder, second behind everyone I hurt. Psychosis is definitely scary. Psychosis is horrifying. But psychosis is kind of the thing that causes you to hurt your family and hurt your loved ones. So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing as being the worst, I think. Nobody answered before. I don't know if anyone's there or willing to answer this, but if you, I know we don't have like a ton of people, but if you are somebody who has bipolar disorder and has experienced a psychotic episode and has come out of it on your own without medication, please type it in the chat, because it is possible, but I don't know how often it happens, how rare it is, because usually in order to come out of psychosis, you need medical intervention. Having to deal with issues most people don't know even exist sucks a lot. Hi, Greece. Hi, Hazardous. I have an Adderall withdrawal. Hi, so I'm reading Constantly Changing. What's the deal with ghosting? How can you get past it? I want my friend to not feel, but I just want it to be ever. Okay, so Constantly Changing. Are you the one that has bipolar, or your friend has bipolar? Is your, whenever that comes through, let me know, because the answers. I'm 16. I went through a psychosis episode. Hazardous Possum, did you come out of the psychotic episode? Your friend has bipolar. Okay. Constantly Changing. So maybe have you tried sending your friend a note? They might not be reaching out to you. They might be ghosting you. And I don't even want to say might. Like, I'll tell you, they are. They're ghosting you because they're, if it's because they've come out of an episode and they were in psychosis. Either if it's mental health related, it's probably either they're embarrassed and ashamed, or they're just too depressed to even talk to anybody. After my first after all my episodes, there was a period of time where it was physically painful to even talk to someone. I was so overcome with embarrassment and guilt that even having a conversation with someone was a challenge for me. So your friend might just be dealing with all the trauma of what they've been through, and the reason why they're ghosting you doesn't have anything to do with you whatsoever. But sometimes it's easier to walk away from a relationship than to have to face plant in front of someone and acknowledge all the horrible things you did to them. So sometimes that's easier, and sometimes that's what people do, which is sad. But you just I think if you try to reach out, and if you want to be there for them and you want to be their friend, maybe sending them a note and just being like, hey, I just want you to know I still care about you. Even if you don't want to talk right now, I'll be here. We also don't know. Like, as a person with bipolar disorder with friends who has gone through for me, going through a psychotic episode and having friends that witness me go through that episode, I don't always know who's gonna like stick around, and it's pretty surprising when people do stick around. So like, I had an episode at 28, I think, and I just embarrassed myself in front of everybody I worked with, and it was humiliating. And then one day I'm at my parents' house because I had to move back home because I had destroyed my life, lost my job, embarrassed myself in front of everyone, and had to move back home. And I'm at home, and one of my friends calls and is like, hey, I just wanted to see if you were okay. I had no idea that I would ever hear from her again. I thought that she was just like gonna be like every other friend. So the people that do stick around when you go through, if you are somebody with bipolar, they will surprise you. But also, just reaching out to somebody, if you're the loved one of somebody with bipolar disorder, don't be afraid to reach out to them, a couple times. I mean, I don't say harass them, but if you call them and they didn't call you back for a whole month, shoot them a text message and be like, hey, I still want to be friends. Where'd you go? What happened? Are you okay? Um, I hid mostly with alcohol and drugs, but I beat the odds overcoming. So many of us with bipolar disorder mask our symptoms, or even with schizophrenia too, we mask our symptoms and we try to pretend like everything's okay when it's not, to present a picture to the outside world that we're okay when we're actually not. And so managing with substances is something that's very common. And people with schizophrenia, I don't know if you guys know this, I only found this out recently. People with schizophrenia, 50% use substances or alcohol. That's a huge number, and I think it just shows how painful it is to live with that illness. Hi, Zach, Raina. Hi, Bobby. I abandoned a friend who got paranoia. I just didn't know how to help. DSMJ7389. I don't think you should feel bad for abandoning a friend with paranoia or any kind of symptoms of bipolar disorder. You do what you have to do for your own mental health to survive. And I was spent a lot of my life being like, no, you need to do whatever you can to save that person, to get through. But that's not always going to work. Like, you can really hurt yourself trying to help someone else emotionally and physically. But I had a friend who kind of went away when I had my first episode, and she feels really bad about it to this day. And I told her, I'm like, you can't feel bad about that. Like, there was literally nothing you could do. And you know, we completely change into completely different people when we go into psychosis. And that's really scary because the person that you know and love just goes completely away, and you have this body and this person standing in front of you saying things, and you just can't believe it as real. And so it's very, very shocking. Um, so, yeah. Hold on, Yvonne, I want to answer that, but first I want to answer Sophie. How do you deal with the shame and rumination on a day-to-day basis? It often feels debilitating to me. So, Sophie, how do I deal with the shame on a day-to-day basis? It's a battle, you know. I think focusing on other things is helpful. Yoga is really helpful for me. Mindfulness is really helpful for me. Being nice to myself. I know it sounds lame, but affirmations are really good. But in terms of like ruminating, is when you're having ruminating thoughts, that's like almost impossible to stop. And it can make meditating even harder. But meditation does help, and exercise helps. Running is a good one. Writing your feelings down, sometimes writing things. I think what happens is the brain gets obsessed with trying to solve a problem. So it keeps running over the scenario, trying to come up with solutions and how to fix it. And you're imagining yourself telling somebody off or telling them something else. It just does not stop. I think maybe one of the ways to do that would be to, because you really have to get in your head and examine your thoughts a lot, would be to be like, okay, I'm having this issue, it's going around, I can't fix it, and just like talk yourself out of it in your brain and like take control of your thoughts, which is extremely difficult to do. Thanks for hanging out, Ryan, or Zach Rain. If you suffer with bipolar, hi Yvonne again, how do you think? Okay, hold on. Do you think we are to blame for not having with people? I'm having a little trouble with the question. Do you think we are to blame for not having with people who refer to us as crazy? So crazy is a pretty hurtful word, and I don't know why people feel the need to say that. Everyone's crazy, so. But bipolar disorder doesn't make you crazy. It makes you have a medical condition. I agree with you, Robbie. So Bobby Hogg, hi, thanks for joining. You said when you're manic, that's the real you. That's how life should feel. That's where you're at right now, and Joey Carpio, that's a difficult question to answer. Does smoking pot make bipolar worse? Smoking pot can make you more susceptible to psychosis. For some people who have marijuana, or for some people who have bipolar disorder, they do use it medicinally. But like I said earlier in the stream, I don't know if you were here, all the research that I have seen thus far says that using cannabis when you have bipolar is results in negative outcome. However, a lot of people have different experiences with that. So it's an individual thing. It's not something that I would recommend for somebody that is doing well on medication. I like the synchronicities. I like operating at a higher level than anyone in the area. I like the creativity and much more. Okay, so Bobby Hogg, that feeling might change. That's something that a lot of people experience. I don't know if you've been diagnosed with bipolar 1 or bipolar 2, but I believe, and this is just based on experience, based on some questions that I've asked Reddit and numerous people answering, because I did pose the question to Reddit, do you enjoy hypomania? And a lot of people said that they do enjoy hypomania. Many people said they did enjoy hypomania, and they for the creativity, for the extra euphoria, they loved it. But over time they realized that wasn't them. And over time they realized that wasn't what happiness is. That was beyond. So I think for people who have bipolar disorder and they're constantly cycling between depression and mania, of course hypomania, or depression and hypomania, of course hypomania feels good. Of course it feels amazing. You know, the alternative is being in bed all day. You know, it's a nightmare. So it's one of the big problems why people don't like taking medication is because they enjoy the hypomania. But most people, from my experience, when I asked Reddit the question, most of the people in there said, there was a point in time where I did enjoy hypomania. It changed because of all the damage I did. I also realized that wasn't really my personality. That wasn't really me. So that's what I've heard from people. Just wanted to say hi then. Hi, Molly. Thank you. Joey, yeah, it's totally an individual thing. It's something you just have to figure out for yourself and talk to your doctor and be honest with your psychiatrist about it. Your psychiatrist should definitely know if you're using marijuana. Yes, I used it and it was a nightmare being bipolar. Mushrooms. So I had Adderall withdrawal because I do not take it, but my friend tried ending themselves. We're listening to you, Hazard Opossum. You should never go off a medication without the supervision of a psychiatrist if you're taking any kind of medication like that, because the meds can change over time. Or going off of them abruptly can be really damaging and shocking to your system. So you have to taper off sometimes. DSMJ, I don't think I would be a good therapist. I can't. I take on too many emotions from other people. I was trying to cope with the things going on, and I have an eating disorder, so I didn't eat for 2 days. And when I went through my psychosis, I heard voice telling me to off myself. Jesus, I'm so sorry. It's really hard when you're hearing a voice that's telling you to do something that awful. I've dealt with thoughts not quite the, like somebody telling me, more myself at that point, but I also empathize with you with eating disorder. That's something I also struggle with. There'll be days where I don't eat and then I will binge eat. For example, last Monday I didn't eat anything all day, and then Tuesday I ate like shit all day, and then Wednesday I ate like shit all day. Or no, was it Sunday? Sunday I didn't eat anything, and then Monday I ate like shit all day, and then yesterday I ate like shit all day. So I have experience with disordered eating as well. Some people have it really, really bad, and then some. I have had like a level, I'd say a level 4 eating disorder my whole life. At points it was like level 7, but I don't think I have it as bad as a lot of people. Bobby, are you prescribed any medications for bipolar disorder? Constantly changing. Does that mean they aren't covering up for things and are just, I don't know. I don't think anybody's using you emotionally. Do I get triggered very easily? Robbie, if you mean do my symptoms get triggered easily? Yes, well, I wouldn't say easily. Right, it depends on things, right? It depends on the world. Like if I just broke up with somebody in my life, then that's gonna trigger bipolar symptoms as well because it's a traumatic event. But medication helps manage that. But there are things outside of our control that are gonna affect our mental health. Like what's happening in the United States is very damaging for a lot of us. A lot of us are struggling with that. I know I am. So Um, so I wouldn't say I get triggered really easily. Words like crazy trigger me. And when people say that, imply that people with bipolar disorder have a victim mentality, that's triggering. Um, certain things like that are triggering. Hazardous opossum, that's pretty light. Um, Sometimes we just like learn to live with these illnesses, right? I don't think like disordered eating ever really goes away. I think it's always something that I think once you have some sort of eating disorder, it's some elements of it are going to stay with you your whole life. Um, for example, for me, it's counting calories, like not being able to put anything in my mouth without knowing exactly how many calories it has. I'm not psychotic, so I refuse medication. But with that said, I usually have one episode a year and I never allow it at work. If I'm not well, I hit the ER and I'll stay the night. So you are treating your illness. You are just not treating your illness on a regular with medication. You are managing, like you're utilizing the services that you need, like the hospital. So if you're not experiencing psychosis and you're finding other ways like therapy and stuff like that to deal with your emotions, if you are bipolar disorder type 2 and you aren't at risk for mania or psychosis, your risk factors are not as higher of mortality as somebody with bipolar 1. So it sounds like you are dealing with your illness. I just really love my friend. Or wait, did I? Oh no, that was Bobby. Sorry. Could they just covering up for something embarrassed? I just really love my friend more than anything. I want something like magical to say. I guess I don't know. I don't know how long you've known your friend or how close they were, but like I said, if they're your friend, if they're really your friend, and you want to make the relationship, you want to stay their friend because I keep forgetting they're the one with bipolar. Um, just be patient, and just let them know that you're there for you and you can't control other people. But like I said, with bipolar disorder, you cannot take anything personally. If somebody is like screaming in your face telling you that you're the worst person in the world, if they have bipolar disorder and you're like a sister, a friend, a brother, and they're screaming and saying all these horrible things, you cannot take it personally. You cannot let any of those words hold any value. They mean nothing. They do not mean anything. They're symptoms coming out in a verbal format. That's it. Um, so that's always going to be the most important thing, to not take things personally. Please help me. Ha ha ha. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, that's, you know, if you can handle it, if you're, and be like, I can't sleep in 3 days, and then you can go. All my friends are fake that use me for money, venting, and other than that, they left me and want attention, so now years later, I remain alone. I'm sorry, hazardous opossum. I don't know if you had a lot of money, but I can't imagine having a lot of money and having people only want to be my friend for that money. It must really mess you up. But there's always good people out there, you guys, so that's probably one of the best things that I can say to anyone is like, just remaining positive is huge, and being grateful is huge. There are so many things that I wish that I could work on and be a better person, be more positive, meditate more, have more positive thoughts in my brain. I feel like I'm not as happy as I could be. Yeah. I have my brother, he doesn't like human beings very much. He kind of sticks to himself. He works in a job where he doesn't have to be around other people, and he just really doesn't care for other human beings. So he has a couple cats, and he did have three, but one just passed away. He put him to sleep during my last live stream, actually, put her to sleep during my last live stream. But yeah, his life works for him. He finds happiness in pets. His cats are his world. If you don't like humans like my brother, maybe get a cat, because they will definitely give you lots of love, and we all need love, and it definitely helps with blocked for sure. I can't imagine why you would be blocked for sure. People pleaser, most of blocked for sure. If you would like to talk about anything relating to bipolar disorder, we can talk about that. This space is not going to be a Trump loving area. So you're probably not going to enjoy it here if that's what you want to talk about, if you want to talk about your love of Trump, because I feel quite the opposite about him, and I think he's a terrible person. Been a people pleaser most of my life, so I give myself permission now to protect my peace. Yeah, exactly. You have to protect your peace. So yeah, sometimes people, like, I think my dad worries about my brother sometimes, but like, he's happy with his cats, and like, I get it. Like, humans pretty much suck, you know. He has social anxiety, real bad, and so, you know, it's crazy. Every single one of my siblings has some sort of issue. So definitely mental health stuff is hereditary. Teen counselor. Oh, that's awesome. Definitely. I know that group counseling has helped me a lot with bipolar disorder. And a counselor, somebody asked earlier about shame, so I want to share this because I never got around to sharing it. When I had my last really bad episode, I pissed off everyone. My family hated me. I thought they hated me. I thought they didn't want to forgive me. I felt horrible for everything that I had done, all the things I said. I was embarrassed, all of these things. And one day I was complaining to one of the group counselors, and I was like, yeah, you know, my family hates me. They won't talk to me again. I don't know how to make them love me again. And she's like, well, that's not fair. If they're still angry at you, you were in psychosis. That's not your fault. And when she said those words, like, the weight that came off my chest was like thousands of pounds. Like, when she said, that's not your fault, you were in psychosis, then I realized, whoa, I was psychotic. How was that my fault? My brain that controls everything I do and say was broken. And so that really helps me a lot with the guilt and shame overall, like on the big screen. Hi, Charles Sherman. Big crowds trigger my symptoms. Robbie said big crowds trigger my symptoms. I get that. You might, I don't know if you're an empath, but there's something, I don't know if you guys are familiar with what an empath is. It's a personality type. So it's somebody that is so aware and in tune with emotions that they subconsciously notice in other people their tone, voice inflection, you know, little ticks, all the little things that they do. And they feel so much empathy that they feel what the other person is experiencing. And so when you're an empath, being around a bunch of people can be very overwhelming because there's so many different emotions going on. But also can be part of bipolar. And noise can also be really triggering with bipolar disorder. Like if you're somewhere and there's construction going on all day and all day in the apartment next to you and you have to listen to it all day, you will get extremely irritable, maybe more so than somebody who doesn't have bipolar disorder. Yes. Oh, Jesus. Hazardous opossum. I appreciate you. You're funny. I don't want to apologize for my short venting as if it's a lot. No, this is like everybody vent here all day long. That's what we're doing. I'm just hanging out. We're just hanging out. If you guys want to talk about bipolar too, if you want to go in there and go off about how your cousin screwed you over yesterday or whatever reason, you can say that too. You do not have to apologize for any venting ever. Yes, depression can feel extremely hopeless. Thank you, Mordecai. Thank you, Mark. I hope you enjoyed the channel. I talk about my life living with bipolar. I have tons of blogs on my channel, but I also have a couple of cute dogs and cats that I put shorts up for quite often. One of the things that I find interesting is that with bipolar disorder particularly, there will be a lot of people who will come to my channel and say that God will cure my bipolar and that I just need to accept Jesus and my bipolar will be cured and I'll have a better life and that I just need to repent and all these other things. People will come to my channel saying this. And it's not true. So I lived a part of my life where I was religious and told myself that it was my choice to believe in God and, you know, follow all the propaganda and the political books and everything. And that's where I was. And I found it to be a very powerful force in my life at the time. Since then, I've moved on. And since then, I have accepted the fact that no matter how many times I pray to God, my bipolar will not be cured. I will continue to take medication for it. But the reason why God doesn't cure or fix impossible things is because he's not real. That's my opinion. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Like when people start praying for God to do impossible things like grow back limbs or, make something fall from the sky, something that couldn't happen, that could not happen on its own. So in terms of I think, okay, so I'm going to address this because I think it's important to have some sort of spiritual understanding if you have bipolar disorder, or any kind of, for anybody. I think it's important to have some sort of framework for what you believe in, some sort of higher power, if you will. But mine is not religious, and I am atheist, but that doesn't mean that I don't have a spiritual belief system. Atheist isn't about what you believe in, it's about non-belief. So atheism just says that I believe there's no evidence to prove that a God exists. Um, but it's not saying I don't believe in anything. So because I believe in love, and I believe in the power of that, and I believe in energy and the power of that, and I believe in our thoughts and all these other supernatural things, if you will, like if you want to put it that way. But I think life is pretty supernatural. But yeah, the whole God topic can be really triggering for me because so many people come and say that it will fix you, when years I prayed to God to fix my bipolar, and not once did it work. Not once. My life just got worse and worse and worse. Bobby Hogg. That's good to know. I hope that's true. I am Wiccan. I pray to nature and our dual god goddesses, but it's my personal depiction and I will never shove it in anyone's face. Awesome. That's awesome. Hazard is awesome. I think it's cool to like share people's different beliefs, Like, I just think that it becomes a problem when people start saying, if you don't believe what I believe, you're going to go and burn in hell forever. That's when I think it's a problem. But I think that people sharing their different spiritual beliefs is a cool thing, and that it's cool that we have different spiritual beliefs. But I'm with you. Like, saying you're wrong if you don't believe what I believe is insulting. So, lens of leisure. Yes, I have bipolar 1 with, I have bipolar type 1 with psychotic features and mixed episodes. And I've been streaming for about an hour and a half answering questions about bipolar disorder and what it's like living with bipolar disorder and just hanging out. So if there's something, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be on, but if there's something you want to know personally about bipolar disorder, if it affects you in some way, please drop a question below. Please, people tell me that all the time about going to hell, but because hell doesn't exist in my belief, I don't care. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I just get frustrated. I think it's just triggering when people say, oh, I know many people that were cured of their bipolar depression because they prayed it away. That is a trigger for me. It's always going to be a trigger for me because I feel it's like gaslighting. It's like, what are you saying? I deserve my illness? Or you're saying like, oh, all I have to do is ask this guy to fix it. And I've been asking and asking. He's choosing not to help me. Why? Why is he helping this person and not me? It just doesn't make any sense. So, Mantic Monday. It's Tuesday though, isn't it? How do you know I got that? Do you still experience mood swings? Yes, I still experience mood swings, even though I'm on medication for bipolar disorder, but they're minor mood swings. Like I might have a day where I blow up over something really ridiculous on my husband, and it will be because I have a lot of stress in my life. Maybe I've been watching too much news and I'm super stressed out about our government turning into a fascist police state. Sometimes that stuff gets to me and I get really upset. And then I'll have mood swings and blow up and stuff. So it's really important for me to stay focused and like not internalize the outside world, because it really affects my symptoms. Do you take Vraylar? I think I tried Vraylar. I think I tried Vraylar for like a minute or two, and I just like, I can turn the news off and stuff, but I still can't stop seeing like the blacked out Escalades and hearing about people being snatched from the car wash or whatever, but it is a good idea to turn off. Bye, hazardous opossum. It is a good idea to turn off the news. I have depression and anxiety. I have to take breaks from news and socials. Yeah, I think when I started out the stream, I was saying how there are two different people that commented on one of my videos, and one person said that we have to let go that they had a heart attack because of how much the news and stuff was stressing them out. And then another person said they went into a full manic episode because of how much the world was stressing them out. And you guys, it's totally right to just like to turn everything off when you have to, because it gets to be too much, especially when you have a mental illness and you have to learn to take care of yourself. But it is hard for me because I care so much. You tried alcohol. Alcohol is really bad for bipolar disorder. It's a depressant. Everybody knows that. Just kidding. I don't know if everybody knows that, but it is a depressant. Alcohol is a depressant, so it's not good. Can you consume caffeine? You're not supposed to be taking caffeine either with bipolar disorder. It's recommended that you don't. I do, and I shouldn't, so it's not something. Look, okay, let me just say this. I have bipolar disorder. There are life changes that I participate in that lessen my symptoms. Those things, it's a challenge to always do those things. It's a challenge to get up every day and work out for me right now. Sometimes it's easier, but it's a challenge. So yes, I exercise and it helps my bipolar. And no, I shouldn't drink caffeine, but I do. It's hard to adhere to all the lifestyle changes. These minor things, these minor lifestyle changes like no caffeine and exercising and eating right, those are going to help you on the day-to-day symptoms that you might have. Like coffee can make me really irritable, so it'd be wise that I just stay away from it altogether. But I don't. But I quit recently and then I started up again, so it sucked. But so yeah, I'm back on the juice, addicted. But I'm getting tired, you guys. So I think I'm gonna go, unless anybody has any questions. I gotta take my dogs out. Thank you, Mark Houston. I appreciate that. But yeah, you know, it's been fun hanging out with you guys. I don't know how long. Luigi for president. Hi guys, I was actually just getting ready to go. Unless you guys have any questions about bipolar disorder that you want to have answered now, or you know what, I want to end this with some tips. Okay. Meditation is really helpful for me, and I would suggest, if you've never tried it, bye. I'm going to show you guys something really quick before you go. If you've never tried it, because this is really, like, I'm really into like stimulating the brain and stuff. And like this thing is called a singing bowl. And sometimes, like with medication, like there's parts of, like there's people that actually believe like that sound can help you. So like, I don't know if you guys have ever. Sometimes I play this. I don't know if it's coming through. Like if I record this, anyways, the sound like stimulates all these things in your brain. So it really helps. So sometimes I'll play this and it helps me. So yeah, it definitely helps. It's just like, especially with ADHD too, I think it helps because it just like levels frequency. If you just like lay and listen to these things, these sound bowls, they're fun to play too. But yeah, anything natural I can try in addition to the medication and all the other stuff. But thank you guys so much for joining the live. I really appreciate you guys being here. Next time, I'll get somebody to mod, so there's not as much nonsense in the chat. But I really appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you're new here, I appreciate you so much. If you're subscribed, I appreciate you so much too. I think Lancaster left, and some of you other guys that I've been talking to for a while left. But I appreciate you so much. Thanks for tuning in. Bye, Yvonne. Bye, Luigi for president. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys later, okay? Have a good day.